Hello and welcome to Impulsive Movies. Today I am going to explain an action drama comedy film titled Big Brother. Before we begin, please subscribe, it helps us grow. Henry has returned to Hong Kong after serving in the US military for years. Looking to start a career as a teacher, he goes to his former school Tak Chi Secondary. The principal notes that he doesn't have experience in teaching, but, after being shown a recommendation letter from a higher official, he is given a job. Before Henry leaves, the principal informs him that the class he is assigned to teach is one of the worst in the school. The morning of his first day at school, Henry walks into the class to see that it is an absolute chaos. Some students are sleeping, others are singing, some are playing video games, while a good number of them are cooking on a portable stove. Even after the teacher walks in, they completely ignore him and continue with their doing. Henry tries to get their attention, but they pretend to not hear him. He gives up on trying to divert their attention and goes around the classroom commenting on the things they are already doing. The students who were cooking are asked to eat less ramen because it contains too much sodium. Henry then approaches a guy named Ziva playing ukulele and helps him play it. Similarly, he warns a gamer kid against the radiation he will receive from staring at the screen. When the students finally start listening to him, he introduces himself and writes his name and phone number on the board. The students laugh because his handwriting is ugly. Suddenly, someone from the students calls him and asks him to leave the class, but Henry laughs it off. The kids continue to ignore him and continue with the activities they were doing before his arrival. Being tired of all that, Henry uses a rubber band and piece of chalk to trigger the fire sprinkler in the room. The students cheerfully seat out to keep themselves from getting wet. He finally gets their full attention, officially welcomes them to his class. After class, a group of 5 lowest-ranking students gather at the sports supply room to smoke. The leader of the group, Jack, has a crush on an A-grade student from another class. The others find him staring at her picture and make fun of him. The group has a rivalry with the rich and spoiled kids from the school's basketball team. They enter the supply room and mock Jack as usual because he is poor. Later, the basketball team is practicing, while Jack and the group watch them from nearby. Jack drops a bottle in the court which causes the team leader to fall. The group laughs but is given detention by the school's English teacher Miss Liang. To avoid detention, they play a prank on her and run away when she's busy cleaning her desk. Elsewhere, the school's principal is distressed because the education board is planning to deduct 20% of their annual funding. The people from the board visit to take a tour of the school to inspect where the funds are being used. At the same time, Henry enters the classroom where the students have set up a bucket of water to prank him. But his reflexes work faster than the falling bucket and he is able to hit it away. The students who were waiting to make fun of him are in shock. Henry asks for Jack's packet of cigarettes knowing that he smokes. Jack simply hands him the pack, curious as to what is he about to do. Henry asks Ziva to name the 3 ingredients that are in a cigarette. When he answers the question correctly, he is allowed to leave and skip class for 1 day. All the students start banging their desks demanding for them to skip the class as well. When they stop, Henry gives them all a cigarette and asks them to analyze it. Henry knows that if he simply mentions the effect it has on their health, they won't take it seriously, so, instead, he asks them about the outcomes of smoking cigarettes and explains how tar forms in their lungs. For the first time, students pay attention to him and are actually interested in learning. After the bell rings, he asks them to return the cigarettes. The students reluctantly return it. Same day, in the cafeteria, the captain of the basketball team makes one of Jack's friends, Bruce, trip on his leg. This gives rise to an argument between the groups. It later turns into a big fight, throwing food and tables at each other, destroying the place. Later, Henry is informed that 5 students from his class have been temporarily suspended for starting the fight. Henry finds Jack fighting his opponent in the hallway and stops them. On being asked to calm down, Jack accuses the school for being unfair towards them because the rich kids get no punishment. That day, after school, Henry goes through the files of all 5 students to find out more about them. The first guy is named Ziva, is the son of a Pakistani immigrant, who is always discriminated against because of his race. He is often accused of stealing by the policemen in his neighborhood. Ziva's wish in life is to be a musician. The second student is a girl, named Dinan. She was a disappointment to her father ever since her birth because he always wanted a son. Her entire life, she has been trying to gain her father's respect. She even cut her hair to a shorter length and play with cars to pretend to be a boy, yet her father doesn't care about her, while he treated her younger brother like a prince. Then there are two brothers named Bruce and Chris. Their mother ran away with a man when they were small kids, which turned their father into an alcoholic. The brothers only had each other to rely on while growing up. Bruce became obsessed with video games to escape reality, while Chris worked hard in a grocery store to make money for the family. Lastly, Henry can find no information about Jack's family background. In the following scene, we see Jack working at a restaurant as a waiter, and MMA bettor, Jianying, arrives at the restaurant with his business partners. When Jianying isn't looking, Jack steals his fancy lighter but is caught. Jianying's men beat him up. He checks Jack's ID, he finds that he is a student and gives him some money and offers him a job as their food delivery man. Somewhere else, Henry visits Zufa's home and finds him running away from his father and his associates after stealing a ticket. He helps him at first, but after finding out why he is being chased, he takes the father's side. Then he takes him to hang out at a bridge to motivate Zufa to doing whatever he wants. Henry begins to sing with a band performing in the streets. Seconds later, Zufa joins him and sings in front of people for the first time ever since being bullied at school for years. Meanwhile, Bruce and Chris's father comes home late as usual, and orders them to bring him a beer from the store. When the brothers refuse, he yells at them to get out of his house. The next day, Henry meets with your father and convinces him to go to rehab for his son's well-being. In the meantime, Dinan's father brings her a bag of makeup products and asks her to act like a girl for once. Dinan is furious at him for always making her feel like she's not good enough. She applies the makeup on her younger brother and sneaks out of the house with the car key. She is about to drive away her father's car, but is stopped by Henry at the right moment. He tells her that driving without a license is illegal and suggested an alternative. Following that, they go to a go-kart racetrack. Henry also invites her father and makes them race. The father and daughter show no mercy to each other during the race and eventually end up outside the track. Suddenly, Dinan's go-kart is hit by a vehicle, but she manages to dodge it. Unaware of this, her father cries, mourning his daughter's death. Dinan realizes that her dad loves her and hugs him. The next day at school, Bruce and Chris, along with a group, are sent to a rehabilitation center to interview a recovering alcoholic. They are surprised to see that the person they have to interview is their father. The students ask him how he started to drink. The man answers that he loved his wife dearly, but she left him at the lowest point of his life. Hence, he started to drink and forgot he had 2 kids to take care of. The man doesn't reveal that Bruce and Chris are his sons, but apologizes to them. By the end of it, the brothers are left crying. Somewhere else, Jack has started to work for the MMA bettor Jianying. He offers Jack a lot of money to drug a fighter's drink before the next game. Jack is reluctant but is forced into accepting the offer. On the day of the fight, Jianying sponsors a fighter, but bets money on his loss. Jack puts drugs in the fighter's drink but gets caught while doing so. Before he can blame Jianying, he is beaten up and locked inside a locker. A while later, Henry arrives there and asks the fighters if they have seen his student. The men ask him to return home. Jack, from inside the locker, yells for help. After finding out he's been trapped, Henry attacks them and overpowers them easily. When the fighters step ahead, it gets a bit intense, but Henry dodges their attacks efficiently. By the end, he knocks out their best fighter, who is supposed to compete in a few minutes. In the following scene, they are at a hospital where Henry gets treated for his wounds. Jack tries to reveal the truth about Jianying but is made to shut up. The news makes it to the television and Henry starts being known as the man who beat up a professional fighter to save his student. His popularity in school grows and the students start to respect him. They even get up to welcome him to the class, in contrast to how they were earlier. A flashback shows us that Henry used to be a prankster when he was in school. He even threw water balloons at a student who is playing piano for the parents at an event. Later he fought the same student and broke his hand. He was suspended for the fight, after which he had to fly to the States. Starting that day, the students pay attention when Henry teaches in class and study hard for the upcoming college entrance test. Everyone is doing great, except Bruce, who has grown addicted to pills. It turns out that while Charlie turned to video games to avoid his family problems, Bruce started doing drugs. Since he is really unfocused, he performs badly in his entrance tests. Henry promises to help him, but Bruce grows more depressed with time. Eventually he jumps off the balcony of his house. He is rushed to the hospital and goes into a coma. The media twist the news and blames it on the school and Henry for what Bruce did. The officials from the education board interview Henry and decide to revoke his teaching license. When he packs his things and leaves the school, the students chase him asking him to stay. They are heartbroken by his absence, but they know that they should ace their upcoming test to make him proud. From that day on, they study twice as hard to prove to the board that Henry is a good teacher. On the day of the test, Jack, along with all of his classmates, gets a text from Henry asking them to meet at the school an hour before the exam. When the students gather, they find out that it was Jianying's trick to keep them confined in the school so they won't make it to the examination hall on time. He is doing this to teach a lesson to Henry. A while later, Henry arrives at school and finds out about Jianying's plan. He lets the students free and fights all of Jianying's people to stop them from harming the children. They all escape and quickly make their way to the examination hall, while Henry fights Jianying. While they are fighting one-on-one, Jianying reveals that he was the guy who Henry had thrown water balloons at when he was little. It turns out that ever since Henry broke his hand, he wasn't able to compete in a big music competition. Ever since that incident, he hasn't touched a piano and blames Henry for ruining his dreams. Henry tries to reason with him but is attacked once again. They struggle and get a hold of a knife. At last, Henry gets in a chase to kill him but doesn't do it. He asks for forgiveness for what he did when he was little and walks away. The students reach the examination hall at the right time and complete the test. Cut to, a few weeks later, they all pass with flying colors. Jianying starts to play the piano again but has to practice a lot to be as good as he used to be. Bruce recovers quickly and promises to make it to the next year's entrance test. The principal is also delighted because the board decides to give them a 20% bonus fund because their students performed well in the entrance test. Henry returns to teaching and does the fire sprinkler trick on another batch of students. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel grow. Turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.